How many years, in your personal opinion, until you think most of the teams in NA will not be paying at a loss? Like a rough estimate. How many years do you think it's going to be?
I don't know if they ever... Oh, that's tough.
This is called Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports, not surface level dives into the Minds of Esports.
I'm going to change how I answer it.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Deep Dives into the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Penishevitz, and today's guest is really heavily involved in management now. But before that, it wasn't always like that. He started out as a coach in the UK scene, then he moved on to being a player development coach for Counterlogic Gaming, but then he made his drastic move with Splice Gaming, staying with them for quite a long time until they were acquired by OAM. Now he's at his current position with XL Esports. He has recently taken the position of interim head of performance. Please let me welcome Grant Rousseau, maybe better known as Grievance. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm excited. So we're going to definitely get into that because you were head of operations and you moved into interim head of performance.
Yeah.
You've had a lot of titles in esports, which is an interesting conversation in itself. Titles in esports is something I actually talk to a lot of guests about because they mean almost nothing from what I've seen from the outside. So it would be nice to know, like, hey, what do these titles actually mean? We're going to get, first I'm going to start off easy, though. Okay, so you are from the UK. Okay,
yes.
Now I had a long conversation with someone about food in the UK because I really like food, and they basically said there is no good food in the UK, and I argued that beef Wellington is from the UK and it is their one saving grace. Is there any other good food in the UK?
The English standard is fish and chips, right? If you've done fish fry, I think you call it over there.
Yeah.
But that's what we do, that and roast dinners. But beef Wellington's quite a fancy one for us. Like, you put it away, you wouldn't classically have a beef Wellington on a Sunday night, you know.
That
is
a lot
of work. But no, we have good food. You know, it's not as good as American, but it's good food.
Okay. Do you have to worry about huge weight problems though, like America does? Because like we have good food, but that's also why we have obesity.
I've worked in America my fair share of this, as we've seen, and no, the weight problems there are a nightmare compared to here. So no, nowhere near as bad.
Okay. So you get used to being fat, or you just get used to...
No, you get used to like trying to balance it, right? If you're in America, whereas here you can be a little bit more relaxed. So
Okay. So do you think that has to do with portion sizes? Like mostly?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, also all of the food is like on another level of unhealthy, but the portions don't help. I think it's both.
Okay.
Like honestly, like just the stuff going into it's a whole conversation, but like the stuff going into the food, you know, half of it's banned in Europe that you can eat in America. So
okay,
you know,
does that just mean it's really tasty? Like, are they just
yeah, it makes it really tasty, but whether it's good for you is a different question. So
okay, okay. So you're obviously from the UK. Where are you from in the UK?
I'm from down in Kent, so it's southeast UK, just below London.
Okay,
where I spent most of my life growing up.
Okay, what's it like in Kent?
It's very countryside-like, so, you know, I grew up in a sort of a couple of different villages, you know, local school, local friends, you know, never saw the big city or anything like that. So it's very, it was countryside as you would know it, really. But it was really nice. It was really, really good. So,
put it in perspective for someone who's out there. Obviously, I actually grew up in a very rural area in northern Michigan, which you basically know everyone, and it's a very common practice.
It's a bit like that for me, yeah.
I'm imagining it's kind of similar. So, like, your graduating class, how big was it?
Class sizes were like 18 to 20.
Okay, that's very small.
You know, yeah, they were small. So,
okay. Yeah. Okay, so looking at classes, so do you have any brothers or sisters?
I have one younger brother, 3 years younger than me.
Okay, so you're an older brother.
I'm the oldest.
I'm also the oldest.
Yeah.
So, I mean, was your brother also a pain in the ass all the time?
Yep. we have a fantastic relationship now, but oh boy, when we were growing up, you know, same as any, right? You know, the sort of younger older brother rivalry was something.
Okay, so how did that kind of play out? Like those rivalries? Did you like just a lot of arguing? Was it some fighting? Was it, me and my brother fist fought a few times. I won all those fist fights. I would like to put that out there.
It was never too bad. Like he was what he was good at school was often fairly different to why he was very creative, very musical minded, very very English minded, that kind of thing, whereas I was much more like science and maths. So yeah, it was always a rivalry in the sense of just brothers messing about more than like anything more than that. We're quite different personalities.
And then what did your parents do growing up?
What jobs they do, or yeah. So we've had a bit of a journey. So my dad's South African, and he was a South African diplomat. So used to sort of travel the world as part of that. And my mum bumped into my mum in England when he was there. Or she I forget whether it was she was down in South Africa. I can't remember which way around it was. No, he was in England. They met in England. But anyway, and she effectively followed him on that journey, and sort of many different places. And then they had me. Actually had me in America, so I'm actually technically I could claim tri-citizenship, but no need. But yeah,
you're like screw that. I don't want to deal with the health insurance.
I'm good. So but yeah, and then sort of when I was like 1 or 2 years old, moved back to England, and dad changed jobs, became like a management consultant, and settled in England basically.
Interesting. So being a diplomat and traveling, did he continue traveling when he was a consultant?
No. So like once I was about, I think it was like 1 or 2 sort of when we settled down. Actually, maybe it was a touch older because, but no, once settled down in England, like that was it. Like it was staying in England. It was staying in Kent. So okay, during that time, like he was retraining. So I know how much he had to go through that. But it was staying in England.
Okay, and then what did your mom do?
She did everything, man. She did some marketing stuff. She did some teaching stuff. She's done a whole. She's been a estate agent for part. At the moment, she's like a careers advisor at a school, and sort of like a sort of teaching assistant, I guess is a good way to put it. But or more of an admin actually in the system. But she's been because she's following my dad around. She's kind of had to do different things depending on where it is. So she's sort of followed suit.
Okay, I mean that makes a lot of sense. So your this ability for math and science, you said that's what you kind of more gravitated from. Who'd you get that from? Yeah, mom or dad?
She'll hate me if I say it, but dad. No, my dad is very logical minded, very logical thinking. The diplomat work, the management consultancies all around project management and that kind of thing. So it's just very, it's just always naturally gone into the science and maths. Was my mum, I think, which my brother gets from is much more creative. She was very good at music, written, spoken, that kind of thing.
Okay, so did you do any music growing up, or were you just like, no, I did. Me?
No, I love my music. I still do my music today. I played. God, what did I played saxophone, guitar, and flute at school. Trying to do as much as I could. I still play guitar to this day, which is
I
nice.
also play guitar
regularly. Nice.
Yeah. What kind of guitars you got?
I've got a Gibson SG back at home, hidden away, electric. That's been there for a while. Admittedly, used to be in a band and all that, but no, I just have like a Yamaha acoustic up here. Nothing special, but it's what I've had for a while. It's my way of de-stressing, really. It's just to play that in the evenings. So.
What kind of music do you gravitate towards?
I've always enjoyed like relaxing, calming sort of acoustic music, sometimes a little bit folky or I guess country sort of esque. So Mumford & Sons, Coldplay, Ed Sheeran. It's pretty poppy. It's pretty but it's just what I like. It's just I just like sort of that calming, nice music.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You mentioned you played in a band for a while.
For a while, yeah, briefly. I mean, school band, like 16 years old kind of thing. But,
same type of music?
That was more rock, but I think like every kid at 16 played rock, I swear. So, Rolling Stones and things like that.
Okay.
But every kid did that. So, it's kind of, if you live in the UK, you have to do like UK rock at some point.
Yeah. So. I mean, I guess that makes sense. So what was the biggest audience that you got to play for? Or was it just a garage band?
There was a few. I think the most we got was like 80 to 100, which was not bad for like
it's good.
16, 15-year-olds. Like a couple. One was like a talent competition, and then one was like a sort of a mini party that some people had set up. We did a couple, small things here and there, little evening parties. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. Actually, I do miss it.
Yeah, it's because I played on stage. I played jazz band, but then I also played in a rock band.
Nice.
I prefer rock bands way more, to be honest. Like the rush that you get from that crowd is pretty incredible. I imagine it's similar to how a player probably feels on stage, to be honest.
Probably when they're walking out for the first time and all that, yeah.
As a coach, I don't get that same feeling. I'm fine. I don't mind being in front. Like, I just don't get that same rush of like, because they're not here for me. They're here for players, right? So you don't have the same level of
Exactly.
like adrenaline.
Yeah.
It's very weird though.
Yeah,
So
I mean, I guess I've always had that, but that's just because that's how I am. Like coaches hate me because they're sitting there just calmly behind, just going, okay, yeah, and I'm sitting there going, so
they're like, get out, get out.
I have been threatened to be thrown out a couple times before because of it. So, but it's good, all in good fun.
I mean, yeah, it is. So I kind of want to look at kind of your life growing up and what school was kind of like for you. You mentioned you went to a small school. What type of kid were you growing up?
I think I was like, for want of a better phrase, like the geeky kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I was the study hard, do your grades, do well, get into a good school kind of kid. Just
Mm-hmm.
do your homework. Never really went out and about much. I was quiet. I wouldn't say I was quiet, but didn't have the most friends, it's fair to say, or have my own group of friends that was very close, and just got my grades in. Sorry, my computer just turned off briefly there.
You're good.
Just study hard, work hard,
Okay.
kind of kid, really.
Okay. Did you do any extracurricular activities? You mentioned you played music.
God, yeah, I forget. Honestly, like I did. If it existed, I probably did it at some point. Yeah, I would do, even though I wasn't very good, I do all this extra school, after school, like sports clubs, music. I don't know, like if there was something the school was putting on, I was probably trying it out. So, there wasn't much I didn't do really.
Why do you think that is? That you had this thing, I want to try everything?
I don't know. I guess as a kid, like I just always wanted to try anything that came out, regardless, because regardless of what it was or what it meant. I don't know. Just and I think my parents also pushed it to always try different things, be different things, because they were thinking, help him with schooling or help him with whatever it may be, friends, even whatever, right? Meeting new people, etc. I think for me, I just got used to that sort of nature of, there's this new club out, let me just go try it because my parents will want me to anyway, and why not, right? So I got used to sort of trying those different things.
Do you think that helped you get into esports? Because I mean, really, if you're not willing to like take risks and try, because that's a whole mentality of, hey, you should just try things and see how it works out.
You know what? I never even considered that until you said it, but it would make sense, right? Like it does make sense. Yeah. I always, even at university, looking back, I always was trying the crazy stuff, in terms of the clubs. I was doing. I always said, my parents always laughed, and friends like, I did breakdancing for a year, and I'm like absolutely not designed for breakdancing. But I was just like, I want to do it, and a friend wants to go, why not? So maybe that makes sense. Actually, that does.
Yeah, because I mean, the only way you get into like high risk. I mean, I'm gonna be real. Esports is definitely one of those high risk things anyone who thinks that esports is super, you're an idiot. I'm sorry.
No,
like if you think that you're stupid, like there is definitely risk joining esports, and you need to be okay with it. And I definitely know that I am one of those people who likes to take risks. Like I like to take risky things that could pay off or could not, because I just enjoy that aspect of it. And I think you have to if you're gonna get into this field. So I think that's a very interesting thing looking at your life, that this is something that was kind of always kind of pushed on you, or you kind of sought out. One of the things you kind of mentioned earlier was that you didn't mention that you had any like super close friends that you kind of just hung out with.
I wouldn't say
everyone.
no. I definitely had super close friends. I just didn't have perhaps many. Like, I wasn't the popular kid at school, let's say.
Okay.
But,
I mean, there was only 20 kids in your class, so.
Wow, good point. But no, I was lucky enough. I had a group of like really close friends at the 2 or 3 schools I went to. So no, and still to, I mean, I was literally one of them who I've known since nursery. So since 3 years old, got married a month ago, and I was his best man. So like we've stayed in touch the whole time. So
that's awesome.
I've been very lucky to meet some people along the way.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I have to ask, just because I'm huge in this, you mentioned you were geeky. Are you like Dungeons and Dragons geeky?
I don't know. So no, I'm perhaps not that geeky. I guess I guess I meant it less. Sorry, that's not what I meant. That you have to cut that. No, that is not what I meant.
No, not getting cut. That's
I meant as in that used in the terms of that version of. So.
I know. I'm just making fun of you because I play Dungeons and Dragons.
And that version of geek in terms of like extremely studious, like exams at school, working at school, everything like that. I did video games, of course. Every kid didn't, but it was more like geeky smart or whatever everyone called it. That's what I was described as by other people, I guess. The glasses, the hair, the whatever it is. So definitely not what I meant.
I know. I'm just teasing. I play Dungeons and Dragons. I actually have a 3D printer to print out Dungeons and Dragons miniatures because it saves money. First of all, I am definitely conscientious about it. I've definitely made more money off my printer than I've spent. So.
I want to play it. I've played it once, at one of my jobs, and I've always wanted to play it more, but never had, never known the people that could play it with. So
I always thought, so I owned a counseling firm for a bit, and we actually used it for like our groups, for like drug addicts, actually, to get them to kind of work more together and to role play. I always thought it would be interesting to apply it for esports teams too. Right, to get players like some team bonding where they have to it's a role play that's more acceptable for people to kind of live in, because that's the big thing, is you are role playing, but it's an acceptable role play that isn't looked down upon very negatively. I always thought it'd be an interesting way to implement that into teams. So for everyone out there,
if I did that with my players, I know exactly how and who they would be already, right? Like just personality types.
Yeah. So, but it's an interesting thing. So, kind of looking at schooling, you mentioned that you were really studious, and I take it you did very well in school then.
Yeah, I don't like to say it, but I guess that sense, like,
I'm making an assumption.
I got into a decent university, and I got into decent schools along the way. So I was very lucky that I had parents that pushed me hard the whole way. Yeah. And as with any kid, couldn't see the benefit at the time, but we got there in the end. So yeah.
So you mentioned your dad was from South Africa, you said? Okay. Is he originally from South Africa, or is he from someplace else?
He's originally from South Africa. But we've been in England, and he's been in England like 20 years now. The accent perhaps not as pronounced and stuff, but no, he's South African.
Does he have any like cool cultural things that he brought with him from like South? Like, do you do anything that is like South African culture? Like, do you have any special meals or anything that you eat from South Africa? Or like traditions?
The thing is, I'm so used to it that I probably couldn't tell what is or isn't. He's an amazing chef. He's brilliant with a barbecue, which I think is pretty South African. The sausages, the burgers, things like he's actually very South African. That's probably the main thing. Like food is probably like what he does with food, and that's probably the biggest thing. Outside that, I'm not sure there is anything particularly different. But maybe, to be fair, I don't know what other families were like, so maybe I'm just not.
Did you ever have friends come over and be like, "What are we eating right now? I've never had this before."
No, fortunately not. Like we were, anything that was South African in nature was often actually surprisingly minimal food wise. It was just more he took the skills from South African cooking, I think, and put it into English food.
It's a very interesting thing that he did this. So you obviously have one of your masters is in engineering with a focus on business management. Did you go into
my only one? You make it one off would be amazing.
Sorry, you're old. I'm sorry. What isn't good enough? But your one master, not to be confused with multiple, has a business management focus. Did you get that kind of from your dad though? Because you mentioned he was doing business consulting.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I was actually going to go into sort of business management consultancy like him. I went through a sort of range of different things that I thought I was going to do through school and through uni. And I remember just finishing uni and telling him and going like, yeah, I think I just want to do what you do. Like, I remember saying that to him one time, and I was like, it's what I would be good at. Obviously didn't turn out that way in the end, but that was a goal at one point. I actually had a job lined up with that before I joined Splice. But yeah, so I definitely align in terms of the way he works and the way he is.
Did you ever get to see like what he did as a job and work with him? Is that what kind of made you gravitate more towards it? Like, what are those skills that you picked up from this that are similar?
I think in terms of like his actual job, not really until later. Like, it's only been the past few years where I've really been like, hey, what do you do? What do you do with that kind of thing? I think growing up was more just soft skills like public speaking and work ethic and networking, and just these things I didn't appreciate growing up as a kid to actually see how or why he was necessarily good at it. But clearly he was passing those lessons on to me without me realizing, and it just helped a lot. So nothing specific I'd say, but just sort of passed on slowly.
side question, side tangent, because I do this all the time. You actually bring up like soft skills and then hard skills. For esports people, which one do you value? If you can value one more, which one are you going to value more?
Well, it obviously depends on the role.
That's true.
Anything related to performance,
Mm-hmm.
it needs to be a blend, and it needs to be a strong blend. Like, and I don't say that to cop out. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there are too many people in esports performance which are perhaps hard skill. I know the game, I know how to get this out of a player, this and the other, but actually can't do it long term because they don't have the soft skills to manage a team or work with a team, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Outside, if it's not performance, it's whatever's applicable to your job. If it's like network, sort of media marketing, it's probably going to be soft skill. If it's analytics and operations, maybe it's a bit more hard skill. It's depends on the role. So
okay, do you think that there's more people who have hard skills or soft skills in esports right now?
In esports right now, hard skill.
Okay.
Related, and
I would
hard skill
agree with
like what they're good at. Yeah. I think we need more people with soft skills. That's the problem we have.
Yeah, I have, that is one of the things that I've kind of noticed, especially like with my job stuff, is obviously to work with people and their like mentality stuff. And that is one of the things that I've noticed, is that teaching people like some of those soft skills is a very interesting dynamic. So, and that'll bring me into some, like I always said it was because of the, I'm gonna let you sneeze.
Bless me.
Bless you.
Sorry.
I wasn't sure if you sneezed or not because you caught the mute, and so I was like,
caught the mute. I was ready.
do I say bless you or do I say unlucky? So one of the things that like culturally with esports that I always found very unique to like any sort of sports is actually like the growing up phase, growing up into esports. And I don't think it promotes soft skills at all, really. Because if you think about any other like traditional sports, you have to work with teammates from the age of, I don't know, sometimes it's 3, depending on if like how early. A lot of times it's 6, right? First grade for United States, a lot of people are doing sports. So it's 6, 7, and then they do that all the way up until 21, 22. Right, and you're like forced into these team dynamics. So it's very interesting how esports doesn't build up a lot of those soft skills yet. I think it'll get there eventually. I think it's just a matter of time.
It will. It's just a young industry issue.
Yeah, very, very young. So you did very well in school. Did you have lots of choices for college that you were going to go into?
No, well, funny enough, like school was going really well until right before.
Where, right before what? Like, you cut out.
Right before university.
Okay.
Where you need those like final big grades, right? And it wasn't that I was struggling or anything, but exam techniques and things like that didn't make it as easy. I'm not good at revising. I was like, I'd always gotten away with it as a kid of just like passing the exam because I was able to pick it up just in lessons, for example. Of course, once you're reaching that point of work in terms of exams, like you need to be revising, studying. I'm really bad at that. Have to work on that. But no, so I had 2 choices. In England, like you can only have you can like pick 5, and based on your grades, you have to pick 2. So I got one of those 2 choices. So my decision was made for me.
That makes it easy.
But it was one that I wanted to go to, so it worked out really nicely.
So you mentioned that your grades were dipping. Was that just because of the studying, like having an issue studying?
It was honestly, it was just like the way, I don't know if they changed now, but the way like exams were at the time, it was very around exam technique over perhaps knowing the information, right? There's a way to write the information to get the mark as opposed to just knowing the information. I knew that if I got to university, I'd be fine because at university, it's just like know the stuff, you'll do fine. And so I struggle with that because that takes revision, it takes studying, it takes learning, exam practice. And that's where sometimes, I'm not as good because, I like to sort of, I don't like to test what I've learned. I like to just learn and then carry on. So but we made it in the end. It was we got there.
We got there. So
we got there. My mum knows that one. We got there.
Were your parents ever worried about you in colleges because of that?
In terms of getting into college or just being at college?
Yeah, getting into college.
Yeah. But I think it's no different to any parent worrying like they would. I think there was a couple points where it was a little bit touch and go, but we got there in the end. Like with just a bit of help here and there, maybe a tutor here or there, and some extra work on my side, and I got the grades needed. So worked out.
Did you know what you wanted to study in uni?
I spent my whole life growing up wanting to be a vet. I'm a huge and still am a huge animal person. And and I've always loved those working with animals effectively. So I spent my whole life wanting to be a vet, and I remember just before I went to uni, my final year before uni, where you have to like choose what you're doing and stuff. I worked for 6-7 months at a vet's voluntarily in my sort of spare time, weekends, holidays, to sort of build up that experience. And I suddenly realised, I don't want to do this. This is actually quite a tough, harsh job. And a bit much for me. So suddenly I found myself in final year going, well, what do I want to do? And I really enjoyed chemistry. It was my favorite subject. So I was just like, you know what? Let me do something chemistry based. And I looked into it and I chatted with my dad a lot. And my dad was like, well, why don't you do chemical engineering? Because it's chemistry, but it's like project management, working in teams, designing and building stuff from scratch over long periods. It's literally project management with chemistry. And it would just give me options. And I was just like, you know what? I don't know what I want to do. So let's just keep my options open. So I'll go do engineering and I can kind of decide once I've done uni what I want to do after that. So yeah, it was all sort of changed quite sudden from vet to chem eng, but you know.
So looking at, I kind of want to look at the voluntary vet experience. What was that experience like for you? And what was it that made you say, this is not what I want to do with my life?
Oh, I mean, it's a blunt truth, but you know, it's tough hours, and it's a very harsh job psychologically because you are letting down animals a lot. Let's be honest, right? That's part of the job, and I think you have to have very strong. It's no different to be a doctor, right? I think you have to have a very strong mind and a very focused and passionate mind. And whilst I, in every way, wanted to be a vet, I perhaps me saying I want to help animals as much as I can meant that I wouldn't find it easy to put down animals, for example. And that was the biggest turn off for me. Like I guess mentally I knew I wouldn't be able to accept that long term. So you know, it grinds you down.
No, 100%. Like when I was working, like I can relate, because when I was working with primarily drug addicts, like mentally draining. To be honest, it is very and I would like to say I'm fairly resilient, but everyone who I know who like works with the there's a point where everyone you just put yourself into like counseling because you're like, there gets a point where it doesn't matter, like you're helping like one out of like not very many people, and like all of the times that you don't help someone because they just don't want to do it, or they lose their children and they're not thinking like, oh my God, I should really change my life now. It's just mentally draining. So I imagine it was probably
it's obviously, you know, it's literally that.
So you go into engineering. Okay, which I think this is kind of cool. At what point does League of Legends kind of come around? Because I think you're a couple years older than me. Maybe how old are you?
26.
Oh no, you're actually younger than me. Holy Jesus!
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I was League of Legends wise. I was what everyone says is a late bloomer. Video game wise, I played FIFA, Football Manager, sports games. I was Call of Duty. I was as generic as they came for video games. And something like League of Legends in no way appealed to me. And I did I did 4 years out of my 5 for my degree, just doing whatever. And in my 5th and final year, when I was 23, my friends introduced me to it. So I ended up in a student house with 5 friends who all did chemical engineering. And they were watching a Fnatic match, a Fnatic versus someone, whoever. And I watched, I was like, what the hell is this? And they told me, oh, this is League of Legends. You know, we played it once. I remember we played it like the year before against bots. I was like, nah, this is whatever. And I got addicted fast. I started playing it a bit more sort of, I think it was just before my final year, but it was that time. And like once I started, I think I got completely and utterly hooked into this game. And I don't know why, but it just got me. And so I think it was season 5, I think it was, when I started properly playing. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, that's quite late compared to most people I know in it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I started my 2nd year of college probably. So yeah, that is pretty early on. You actually did some cool things out, because it wasn't like you just, CLG was not your first involvement in esports. You actually did stuff in the UK scene. Which is, there is some drama out there. People are looking. I thought it was quite ridiculous to read. So I would agree. I was like, I'm just not gonna, like, I started to read it and I was like, I don't want to waste my time. Like, I'm sorry if it's something important to your life. And I was like,
It's actually a funny story because one of the pieces was involved with XL Esports, who
I know.
We joke about it 3-4 years later, but yeah, I know the drama that was on at that time, if you can even call it that, was just, it was like if you were part of the UK scene, you were at some point going to be synonymous with drama. And I came in and I was just like, so I made my own org, my own team. I finished university and I was like, and I had a job lined up and I was like, you know what, I've got 3 months till the new job. I know I'm going to be bored if I just go home and do nothing.
Yeah.
I've watched these fanatic people play esports. I went to Worlds 2015. There was the quarterfinals were in the UK, and my friends took me in. I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And I fell in love with it. And so I was like, you know what? I have no idea what I'm doing, but I'm just going to stay at uni for an extra, I think it was 4 or 5 weeks, just go upstairs in a room and just try and make a team with no clue what I was doing. And I remember putting an advert out on some like generic find a team website. And I'm like, I'm looking for gold and plat players, let's make a team. And like, I started there and I met a coach who ended up becoming sort of the person I work with the most. And then people were telling us, well, why don't you just pick up a diamond team? Because no one has it. I was like, okay. And then they were like, well, why don't you just pick up a master team? And it just kept going. In space of 0 to 6 weeks, I suddenly had a UK team that was competing at, and going for the championship. And I was like, this went fast. And then the drama came with it because it was so fast. So, but yeah, it was just me in my spare time in my summer holidays, just doing it myself.
So you mentioned getting into League and you said that you were addicted. Did that hurt your last year of school? I know that League of Legends hurt my second year, I think, pretty badly.
Yeah, there's no other way around it, is there? No, I was pretty good. So I played it the year before a little bit. And unfortunately, the year before I wasn't graded because it was just like part of like a research thing. So I got like the main, like I need to play every day out of the way. And then in my final year, I think initially at the beginning it was a little bit, but it wasn't as bad as perhaps like video games were for me back in school. So yeah, no, it was manageable.
Yeah. So it brings up an interesting topic, though, because like obviously the World Health Organization, like I think last year, the year before, talked about like video game addiction, and it's been getting brought up in like esports all the time. I think that almost anything can become addicting to people. To be honest, like that's kind of my approach. Is that people who say that it doesn't exist, I think, are stupid, but people who said that everyone's addicted are also stupid. So like it's somewhere in the middle. Like there are criteria before you do this, and I do think it's a real thing, and I think that it affected me. So like I definitely think that like I do not play video games nearly as much now as I did.
Same.
Like I cut, and maybe that's because I also worked at esports. You're like, I don't feel like fucking playing games.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
like I don't want to play games right now. I'd like to, I don't know, sleep or watch some Netflix maybe and enjoy that time. So, but it brings up an interesting thing of like, how are we going to take this? Because I almost view it like professional gambling almost, right? Like it's probably not that extreme, but there are people who are professional gamblers, and then there are people who are addicted to gambling. So
it is that, and it's. I think the word addiction for video gamers is used very fleetingly. Like when I say I was addicted to League of Legends, I'm talking like a couple games a day. Yeah. And I use the word addicted because it was the only game I played. I stopped all my other video games to start. So compared to, someone who does play 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and it is affecting their school, and it is affecting their health, and it's affecting whatever it is, that's when it's addiction. I think we use I think it was a term already used in video gaming.
I think so
casually. Too. But no,
I think that's because angry parents would say it. They used to be like, "Oh, you're addicted.
You're addicted." Yeah. And there was a time I think I had, I was a bit younger, and like I spoke about how I wasn't good at studying. I would play video games secretly on the side. I had Football Manager up and I'm minimizing stuff. My mum knows this all, and she's like, "You're addicted to Football Manager." I'm like, "Well, no, I just don't want to revise. Like it's not an addiction. It's a swap. Like, does that count?" But yeah, there are people out there who have negatively harmed themselves as a result of playing video games non-stop, and that's where they need help.
Okay, so where do you think that goes? Do you think that involves esports at all? Because I think that, like, obviously mental health and esports, like, I don't think that esports is actually very responsible for that, but some people might argue that it is because they do it with other things. Do you think that esports should play a role in maybe making sure that there are some things, especially when it gets into like schools and stuff like that? Do you think that they play a role in making sure to almost like monitor or help parents teach them how to actually raise their children? I guess the best way.
Yeah, I mean, you probably killed it with that last phrase, to be honest. Like, Yes, like we have a responsibility 100% because it would be easy to us sit here and go, oh, you want to be a player? Like just play non-stop, right? Give up everything and play. Like you're probably going to become a professional player in some capacity if you just play non-stop and you get better at the game, right? But that's completely irresponsible. It gives you no backups. It means you probably damage your health, damage your relationships, social life, whatever it may be. It's completely wrong. So a lot of, I know Excel have done this. I know other teams I've worked with have done this. Is we try to push is this sort of education towards parents of like, there is nothing wrong with video gaming.
Yeah.
As long as it's done correctly, as long as a kid has, done their homework first and then they play video games, or, they're using it to learn in some way, or, they do a maximum of a couple hours a day, for example. I think the problem is parents get scared that their kid's even touching video games. Or they're starting to damage their social life by playing video games. And that's where, again, I'm like, well, hang on, social lives have changed. It's all online now, etc., etc. So, I said to parents, I'm like, stop being scared of it. Like, if you actually, as a parent, if you learn and get involved with it, I guarantee you'll have more success because the kid will understand you're a part of it and you can see what is healthy and what's not healthy.
Do you think
don't
that's...
just read articles.
Yeah, do you think that's it actually being involved in like high schools or anything is actually going to help that a lot? Because it'll be more regulated.
Yeah. I mean, firstly, it will help parents see that it can be a force of education, in terms of teamwork abilities and leadership ability and logical thinking and sort of mathematical thinking, etc. On that side. And then on the other side, parents will just see like, oh, well, actually, my kid can use this to be healthy. And I understand what they're getting out of this game. I understand why they are enjoying this game as a result. And again, then because I understand it, I know what's a balance and what's not a balance as a parent.
I agree with that. And I think that playing video games, I think there's even been some studies that like the IQ for certain tasks, especially like logic related or like, actually like the IQ studies on them are actually pretty incredible how much it actually does help you for certain tasks at least. I worry about soft skills a lot. That is like the only thing that I slightly worry about. But I mean, hey, if there's less people with soft skills, that helps me out, I guess. So
that's where it helps with schools, right? That's where, like, if it's done in the right environment, you can do leadership, teamwork, etc., etc.
Yeah, 100%. So looking at your degree, when you graduated, you mentioned you had a job. Okay, that you had a job lined up. And what was this job? Because I have one of them.
Valuations analyst for young.
What does that mean in English?
It means I basically go into a company and after lots and lots of work, tell them what they're worth. So when you see on the news that XX company is worth 74 million now, that's because we said that they're worth that, right? Okay. And it's important for tax reasons. It's important things. So that's it. I did a summer internship before my final year. Went well and effectively got a job to start as a result once university finished.
Did you like the job?
Nope. Nope. It was part of accountancy, right? So there was accountancy exams to do, and I just finished uni. I'd just done this UK team that I'd loved, and I'd had to stop because I just couldn't do it and a job at the same time. And I just sat there, and I remember I was 3-4 months in, and I was on my second set of exams, and I was just like, I've just done, 3-4 years of exams at school. Then I've done 5 years of exams at uni. And now I have to do another 3 years of exams at this job, which is, again, like I'm having no social life because I'm having to go home and revise every night. And it's very, hard exams and the pressure's on because if you fail it, you can lose the job and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, this is just ridiculous. Like 2 months ago when I had time off and I was running stuff myself, I was so happy and loving it. And now I'm just like, great, I have money and I have no social life and I can't use the money at all because I'm literally just revising the whole time. And I just felt I remember how I felt. I felt cheated. I felt like everyone had told me, oh, once you get this degree, once you get that, school exams and then this degree, then you're set up, then you're ready, then it'll be great. And it was just like, that happened again. Oh no, but once you get the accounts exams, then you'll be ready for this, that and the other. And I was just going like, when does that conversation ever stop? When do I actually get to do what I enjoy? And it's all money driven, isn't it? It's all like, oh, if you have more money because you got those exams, then you're going to be happier. And I was very money driven at the time, and it's an easy pitfall to fall into.
So you stayed there for not very long, right? You were there 3 months. What was the point where you were like, screw this, I'm done?
I remember the exact moment. I was in an exam, and the exam was on tax. It was literally an exam about the UK tax system, and I did it, and I finished it, and I walked out the room. I just went, what the fuck am I doing with my life? I just did an exam on tax. Like, what? Like, it was the most boring thing I've ever done in my life. What am I doing? And that was just the turning point. That's just when it clicked for me, and I knew I had to change.
Okay, so what was the process changing? Like, you realized that, okay, I've spent all these years at university. I have this degree now. I don't know if you have to spend money on your degrees. If you're in the United States, you'd have to spend a lot of money.
We get help from the government here, fortunately.
Oh, well. So you didn't have $70,000 in school debt, which probably helps push people to finish those tax exams. They're like, oh, yeah. Please let us have free schooling. So you finish this. You obviously finished school. You have this degree. That's still a lot of time. Like, even though if you're thinking about quitting, it's still like, oh my God, did I just waste like 4 years of my life? Like,
yeah, it was. So I knew I wanted to change. Now, I didn't know I would go straight into esports, but there's mine in the back of my head. Love to do esports, like that's. But I also knew, just for family thinking and everything else, like I knew, like, oh, that's not the play. It's never going to fly. Like, I can't.
Oh, your parents would be mad.
Oh, gotcha. And so what I did was I said, you know what, irregardless of esports and stuff, like I would love to go into management consultancy. I love to do what my dad does. I want to go into more business development, business management, etc. Why don't I just chase that first? So what I did was I quit my job, much to the dismay of many around me. Went home, said, yeah, guys, I quit. And I looked for a job immediately in management consultancy starting the following year. So this is around November, and I'm looking at graduate jobs, post-university jobs starting for the following September. So I'm like, if I do that, I've got a year. I've got just under a year to have a go at esports and see if anything can happen. Like, I've got a backup, and it will work because it will still be a job that I definitely prefer, and my parents and family will be happy with it. And like, it's just an answer for it. So that's what I did. And so I went and got a management graduate job starting for following September. And that's when I started applying and got CLG.
Yes, you did. So
sorry.
It's okay. For those out there wondering, he beat me for that job. We both interviewed for that job. And I remember that. Yeah, hilariously. I've been having my eyes on him for like years now, waiting for this interview to confront him. I'm just kidding.
Waiting for that moment of revenge. Yeah.
So he got this job. What was it like being a player? Because obviously, this is kind of leading into titles, I think, a little bit. And like, what does a title actually mean? And in esports, from what I've seen, titles mean almost nothing, which is very sad, because if people would actually be consistent with titles, they would mean something, but they don't. So a player development coach is a good example where people have taken that title and done very, very different things. I switched to mental skills coach because I have a degree in psychology and I specifically work with mentality stuff. And I thought this was the most exact definition of what it is I do, and you can't construe it that much. So that was my thought process. But titles, what does a player development coach do? And what did you do with CLG when you got that job?
I guess, what a player development coach does depends on the team, right? And there's definitely the aspect of what you've literally just said. Yeah. That's a massive part. And then there's like the other side of it, which is more around like sort of schedule, timetabling, make him go to the gym, being there, almost being like their dad, right? Their pushy dad, their boss, etc. Like, make them do stuff, eat right, etc. CLG wanted that side because I knew nothing about psychology side, and they wanted someone who was just going to be like, go to the gym, eat right, look after yourself, stop messing about, get yourself in line, etc. And I guess because of my engineering side and that kind of thing, and having done project management a lot at university and things like that, they thought that I would be, I guess that was what they wanted from me. What it turns out, unfortunately, is when I also got there, they also wanted the psychology aspect. I'm like, dude, I got nothing. I'm not that person. Like, I'm a very black and white, logical mind person.
You're like, I'm an engineer, dude. What do you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's partly why it didn't work out. But yeah, that's what they wanted when they got me.
So going through that, you realize that this isn't the job for me. Did that kind of play back in your head like, oh my God, I got into esports and I realized I don't like this either? Like, this isn't what I want to do. It was weird.
Like, I think it's almost like I was having selective memory where like a mixture of being starstruck, right? Because these are people that I'm just like, oh my God, it's so-and-so player. Oh my God. Mixed with like going to the LCS on Fridays and Saturdays and you're putting on a suit or whatever and you're just like getting into the mode. And you're just like, this is just the best. Like you have selective memory that your Monday to Thursday is awful and you just don't think about it. You just do what needs to be done to get through the day.
Yeah.
And I found myself like just not being useful. Like I was sitting there in scrims and I should be sitting there like, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. I'm not being helpful in any way. And I would talk to someone about their communication a bit, but I found myself just getting in the way.
Yeah.
So I started to, and I started to resent it a little bit. And, and I remember talking with the CLG management staff and it was just like, it clearly wasn't working. And so, I was starting to get a bit worried because I'm like, this is fun, but it's also like, this is scary because this is not a career, right? This is, for me, this is not a long-term career. I was hoping there could be something and this is not it. So like I just did the one split there and it just I look back on it, unfortunately, not with the fondest of memories, just because I know I didn't fit in with it. But God, I had a lot of fun.
I imagine.
I still do have a lot of fun.
What made you say, okay, this isn't what I want to do. I still want to stay in esports. I'm going to try to look for other things in esports and see what happens. How did that go? Because you obviously moved to Splice and you actually moved doing management.
So I came back to Europe and I obviously, this is, it's what, May, and my new job's in September. So I'm like, well, I might as well take a job for the summer split, right? I've got nothing better to do. It's still fun to do the LCS. What I'll just make sure this time is I'll look for a job that is like team manager, right? It's just schedules, looking after players, working a little bit with Riot, admin, whatever it is, right? And I got a company called Mysterious Monkeys at the time reached out to me. And they just got promoted and they needed a new team manager. And just this is where I'm very thankful for CLG, literally because of the name that helped me get the interview and then, got the job as a result. And what happened was during that time I was at Mysterious Monkeys, I was going to the Riot manager meetings and doing things. So I was networking with the other teams and the other managers. And the Splice guy, who was like their director of esports.
That was Marty, right?
No, it wasn't. It was a guy called Hans who actually went to Schalke. He now works for Riot.
Okay.
He was leaving, and so he approached me, and I was just like, we got on very well, and he was just like, oh, so you're thinking job for next year? I'm like, nah, I've got this other job lined up back home. I think I'm going to call it and go back to that. And then I did this new job and did it for 3 months, and then split finished, and I was just like, that was a lot more fun. Still can't see a career in it, but being a team manager where I was actually more appropriate was more fun. And he said, well, why don't you have a chat with Marty? Like, just have a chat. He's here. Go talk to him. So I was like, fine. So I went and talked to him. And he, for the first time, showed me a career in esports. He was like, you can run the European operations. You can use your engineering ability, your project management abilities. Like, this is what you'll lead on. This is what you'll work on. And at the same time, you'll be able to build an LCS team and run it, which was obviously, a super fun aspect, but not long term. So I was like, for the first time, I could see a career, and that's why I went into that.
So, kind of a side question: this idea of actually understanding what to do with employees. Okay, I think that is something like almost like a very unique discussion that doesn't get happened. Do you think that teams understand how to utilize skills for like the team that they're building? Because I feel like a lot of times they don't understand what they're looking for. So like using the player development coach as a good example, right? It sounds like they had some idea, but then they don't know how to actually like utilize your skills, because obviously you weren't skilled in like psychology or stuff like that. So they obviously either didn't care and they're like, oh, anyone can do this, which is almost as bad as anything else. Okay. Or they just didn't really understand how to get the most use out of you as an individual.
Yeah. And I think as with any company, right, if the people at the top are super good, they'll know how to utilize the people correctly, and they'll know how to utilize their staff correctly, make them feel motivated, make them feel energetic every single day. And as with anything, if it's pretty poor staff, or it's staff that don't know what they're doing or whatever it is, and they have autonomy and powers to bring in people or change people, whatever, you're going to have the same result the other way. So again, esports is a young industry, and this was 3 years ago, which in the grand scheme of esports is
Very
a very
long
long time. So, there were people in positions for different companies and different jobs that perhaps have got it because they knew esports, or they were part of the company as it grew, or whatever it may be, right? So they didn't necessarily have those skills. And so they struggled, I think. But what I've seen a lot, and I think a lot of people have seen it, especially with franchising over in League and other games, is you've seen very, very high level talented CEOs, COOs, etc. come into these teams now, and so you're seeing a lot of it on that side.
So when a team does really bad, so I'm just going to use Misfits as an example, because that is a team that did not do very well in the LEC. But also, if you look at their Overwatch team, I don't know if you follow Overwatch at all, but the floor, like that entire tree of overarching issues is pretty bad. Like that's a pretty clear example of okay, it might not be a clear example because this is where the outside looking in, everyone is like, obviously I'm making the assumption because I'm on the outside, right? And everyone has to, you have to make some sort of assumptions about it. But when I see multiple angles of their trees doing bad, and especially when I hear people who know a lot more about League than me saying, oh, on paper, they actually had a really good roster. I'm very confused how this happened. Yeah. My first thought is someone doesn't understand how to utilize people and the talent that they have. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's only so much I can say because they're a competitor. Yeah. So I don't want to sound mean. Some of the people there are super talented, but I haven't seen the inside, so I don't know why it is the case. But yeah, team on paper, it was a pretty insane roster. I would personally argue it was unbalanced. It's almost like too many superstars. There's only so many ways that can work. Performance is the hardest. I've learned hardest to get right in esports, because end of the day, it's something that every esports company wants to be the best in. Everyone wants to fight for good performance, right? Maybe some teams are better at marketing, some teams are better at media, content operations, and they're all specializing accordingly. And ultimately, there's a lot more people that are skilled in that and a lot more talented. Performance is the tough one to crack. Yeah. And, because it's such a high level, if you just, even if that, say, failure to utilize players correctly, it's just 5% failure utilization, but you're actually really good, but it's 5%. That's enough in esports at the level we're at now to put you last. It's crazy. So, maybe that was the case at Misfits. Maybe it wasn't. I don't really know, but it's just testament to the fact that it's just so many small things is all it takes now to suddenly struggle in performance.
That's actually a good thing to kind of jump on there. Do you think that teams should be worrying about performance as much, or do you think that there's many other aspects that are arguably more important? So I'm going to use marketing as a good example. I almost would argue that marketing is more important than performance. I think you lose too much money. The ROI you get from marketing is probably better than the ROI you get from doing performance.
Sure, and I mean, the ROI of performance is actually seen in marketing, partnerships, whatever it may be, right? Because at the end of the day, you're putting money to player salaries, and much is going to compete with that.
And that's a lot of money.
A lot of teams, including Excel, are performance driven because that's why we're in this, right? If we wanted to be in marketing or media, we would go start an influencer company or some sort of player brand, YouTube, I don't know, social media, something or other, right? You're in this because we want to perform, we want to be the best, we want to have the best team. Ultimately, winning in performance is a shortcut, a really good shortcut to success in this industry. If you're winning, you're going to get fans faster, you're going to get brands spot you more, you're going to be attracting better players, which indeed leads to more performance. You're going to be able to be more attractive to franchises. It's a shortcut to success. The difference is of course, if you have a good media department, good marketing, etc., is when you don't have that success, are you still strong as a company? And those are the good orgs when, even with super good performance, those divisions are performing strong, such that one day if it goes wrong, they'll be fine. And then there are teams that aren't performing anything special who manage to maintain a brand and maintain strength in whatever form it may be. I think to say marketing is strong performance or something like that is difficult to say. I think performance is more important because it's just why we're in this. One joins us to be 9th or 10th, and it is the quickest way to success in this whole industry. And it's going to be kind of maybe not the cheapest, but if you're doing, if you're winning a trophy after 1 year, even if it costs you a lot compared to coming 7th for 5 years, that time taken, you'll probably, make your money back faster. So
that makes sense. You're in it. You're the one doing it. So kind of looking at that, Excel. Excel has not performed that great.
Yep.
So that brings us into a very interesting conversation. So I want to kind of jump into you getting hired in Excel, what that was like, and what did you do as head of operations, as much as you can talk about, and what is your new job going to be as interim head of performance?
So I came into Excel as head of operations because, they've been in it a year and they were looking, operations is effectively just running the backbone of the company. Okay. I always say if you don't know that operations exist, that means they're doing their job because nothing's going wrong. It's, I think it's 5 years. It's for young companies at this level. It's IT, it's HR, it's performance admin, it's logistics, and it's travel. And then it's all the processes behind the scene. I'm doing a lot of, I've got project management software introduced to the company. It's a new a new expenses system, finance work, whatever it may be, and that develops as time comes. That's what I was brought in for, and that is what I really enjoy doing. It's what I really love doing over at Intermediate Splice. It's effectively engineering resource. Yeah. Like as an engineer, I would go into a factory and see all the broken bits and go, right, let's fix that and let's do it cheap and let's do it better. It's no different. However, when I came in, obviously performance was struggling, and I wanted to make some changes. And there's only so much I can say, of course, but effectively because I had built the team at Splice 2 years ago that's just made Worlds now, same core, the coaches, same 2 or 3 players, same idea, which they've taken to the next level. I think they just went like, off-season strategy is very different to on-season. On-season is very, your head of performance, someone's going to be wanting to work with the coaches every day, work with the players, make the coaches better, make the players better, a lot of sports psychology, teamwork, etc. It's just not my skill set. Off-season is much more about data-driven statistics. What's the scouting on players, what's going to work as a team, negotiating players, whatever it may be, taking teams out, facilities, getting new staff. So it's a lot more logistical, I'd say. Business. So it's perhaps more appropriate. So I think they just went, well, Grant, like you did the Splice one and it kind of leans into operations a lot in off season anyway, which it does. Would you be willing to effectively take on this role for now until, we have the team set up, things are in a good spot and, we're performing better. And then, you can go back to operations and they'll do what they do in their performance division. So that's why, it's interim, because I was like, guys, I'm going to do this and I will kill to make this the best team ever. But I also know my skills are in operations and I came to do operations and that's what I'm here for. So I see myself doing this probably till like late January, kind of season started early February, depends on other things, but enough to get the team together, see the team off, make this a team. This is a 2-year plan for going really far as a team, similar to what I had in Splice. Like just set them up structurally and ethos wise for success.
Okay. I kind of like that a lot. This idea of long-term plan. One of the things that I like, long-term thinking doesn't seem to be very common in esports necessarily. It feels like even when I've heard people say, oh, we're thinking long-term, that changes very quickly and it very much becomes about the short term. So like a good example is if you're not doing very well in your first year, there's a large likelihood that whatever long-term plan you had is, like in most orgs, would probably get scrapped. Is that the right approach? Because that is like the exact opposite of long term. If you can make adjustments to it, you can make like, okay, well, we need to change it here, here, and here, because that's what you do with the long term plan. You have a plan, and then you're like, okay, well, we know that we're going to have to modify some things as we go along, because the likelihood of you creating a perfect plan right away is very small. But like scrapping the entire thing is literally the opposite of that. So
and me coming in, there was definitely aspect or like thought processes around that, right? But one thing I've loved about Excel is they've stuck to their values and they've stuck to what they want to do. And they coming in to the franchise for League of Legends franchise, they knew that they were going to be behind everyone else because they're new, young. Most of these teams have been doing it for years. This is completely new. So for them to be like, we're going to go crazy far this year, or even within that second year, second year starting now, was, frankly, fairly unlikely. And so part of me coming in has been like, they've got through their first year. It's been rocky performance-wise. And it's partly because they got in late and it was very rushed and they got the roster together and they never had a chance to breathe, right? They never had a chance to sit down and go, what are we actually doing, on performance? Because everything else was, we got to fix the logistics, we got to do the operations, we got to do the marketing. Everything was just do it.
Yeah.
So this is the first time they had a chance to breathe. So it's just really good for them. And so now we've sat down and I've sat down with them and gone like, let's build out a long-term plan here in terms of the team we're trying to build and what we're trying to create and that will actually be successful long term. And it's not going to win next year. We have certain goals, but it's not because you're not going to. It's unrealistic. Let's accept that. And the biggest thing has been getting all the investors, all the board, all the staff on the same page around those facts of what we want to create for the next 2 years. And then if that is successful, that will naturally lead into the years ahead. So it's almost like a reset button this time for Excel because they finally have the chance to breathe.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing what you guys do over the next, like someone actually committing to a long-term goal, because it doesn't mean it's going to work out, but it would be nice to see someone try something that is actually like, we're going to actually think about the future rather than the immediate. And that's actually one of the biggest things I see with performance normally. It scares me about making your evaluations based on performance is a lot of times people make very quick decisions just because it's not working out currently. So if you guys actually stick to your guns, I will be very impressed.
Yeah, so. And it might not work, you're right, and it might flop completely, but the biggest thing, and I was chatting to Kieran, the MD, about it tonight, he said, I brought these presentations into the boardroom, everyone has agreed with them, everyone's aboard this plan, it's all data driven, it's all how we're going to do this and why we're going to do this, and here's all the stats to back it up. So if it fails miserably, we'll be able to turn around and go, well, we all agreed on it. We all said this is the way forward. So, we can't be mad. Well, we can be mad, but as a group.
Yeah.
So, that's the biggest thing is it's like we're all bought into it. And I'm fairly confident it'll work out.
Do you feel a lot of pressure on you? If you're going to be the one mainly responsible for building the next year, what is that pressure like? Because I imagine it is insanely high. Boy.
I don't know if you saw a tweet from me last week, but like I've had every illness under the sun in the past 2 weeks. Like I'm just, considering that I wasn't necessarily meant to do this, I obviously was like, yep, I'll take it on because I do enjoy building teams and all that, and I'll happily do it.
And
but
you're a risk taker.
It's true. I definitely had selective memory again over the fun parts of building the Splice team versus the non-fun parts, which is the late nights and the stupid calls and all the negotiating and telling everyone everything. Oh boy. Yep. So yeah, I'm sitting here now going like, why did I say I would do it? Okay, yeah. But no, it's genuine. It's stressful as hell. And I do take a lot of pressure on myself, I think, because I really want this to succeed for Excel's sake. Like they've brought me in, they've asked me to do it. This is a company that I've absolutely fallen in love with after just a few months. Like I really, really want this to do well for them and their fans. So I think I'm putting a lot more pressure on myself compared to Splice, where I was like, I've never done this before. Let's just try it. Let's see how it goes. This time I'm like, I think I can make it work. So I really want to. And God, it's I'll sleep at some point. I swear.
Yeah. I mean, you can sleep when you're dead, right? That's the saying.
It's true.
So,
yeah.
So what do you do to deal with the stress and pressure? Like, how do you handle like that much pressure?
I make sure, and this is one of the benefits of being back in the UK and with Excel, that my life outside work is a life outside work. I have a house to come back to. I have separate, I've got I'm in the office, sort of mini office, more of a gaming room, like office. I've got a bedroom, and I'm able to separate everything that happens at work, everything outside. I'll come back. I'll play my guitar. I'll go see some friends. I'll maybe play a few video games. I'll just literally not think about it. There are ways to deal with it that I've just slowly learned over the years, and it's very around separation and turning your mind off, because if you're not able to, then it will hit you. And I'm still quite bad. I will still have my sort of Slack notifications on in the evening, and I'll still respond when they pop up. But I've turned these are little things. I've turned all my email notifications off. I've turned a lot of my other generic notifications off on my phone, apart from emergencies. I try not to check my work in the evening unless I know it's something I need to check. You just have to separate. That's the biggest thing.
That is one of the biggest things that I noticed with esports is people have and especially I will say because like obviously working with players, that has been one of the biggest things is players learning how to separate this, and it's harder, I think, when you're in a gaming house, and you can't have, and you have to do some very creative things. You can make it work. It's just significantly harder. And I personally am not necessarily for it, but you can make it work if you want to be cheap.
That's why teams have moved away from gaming.
Some have.
True.
So I will say in Overwatch there are still a couple teams that still have them.
Good point.
So, but there is that. But learning this separation, I think, is it's a very unique task, because if you go to a player and you say, "Hey, listen, you need to relax a little bit. You need to kind of de-stress. You need to get some separation," right? Their comeback is, "If I don't practice, right, I'm going to get replaced," right? Because that goes back to that performance thing, which is it's a thing you have to balance, right? Because there comes a point where if you burn yourself out too much, you actually do worse. And so figuring out like what that balance is, I think, is really important. I think that's like one of the huge things I would like to see esports in particular, and really if you look at like YouTube and any other content creation, it's actually pretty much there too. Like streamers complain about it all the time. Like this actual separation, I would like to see probably increase more across the board.
Yeah, it's definitely. I could go down a whole rabbit hole here, but sort of, we talk about the esports in the East, so China, Korea, etc. The methodology is play more.
Yep.
And that was considered the best methodology for the West for years and years and years, especially League of Legends, right? I'm a genuine believer one of the biggest reasons why the West has finally caught up in terms of abilities in League of Legends, and you're seeing G2 winning MSI, you're seeing Team Liquid win many games, Cloud9, etc., is because, is they finally realized, not they, but the players, like the teams are very good at it, but the players have realized we are not going to beat a Korean team because we play as much as them, because I think their culture, the way they grow up, their culture, the way they grow up, the way they inherently are as a culture and as a country, embodies perhaps playing more and working more, at least on more results. And we in the West are not like that. We need out of sort of work things. So I think the West has really embraced that around gym work, team bonding, sports psychology, all these different aspects that has improved their scrims and their practice as a result, and that's led to them catching up, in my opinion.
I think
I could go on this for hours, trust me.
I mean, you can delve more into it if people especially if people don't know about it. I'm okay us talking about it more. If you want to provide more insight for the people out there, I think it's always a good thing to educate people on this. And I've always thought that if you can help one person with this kind of stuff, then it's a benefit, which sounds very silly, but
I agree. It's I mean, just the biggest thing I say to people is know what works for you. Stop copying. All right, copying does not work. You know yourself, your body, your mind better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And we can give you advice, but just because some Korean kid 8 hours away has played 16 hours today doesn't mean that's right for you. In fact, maybe you're a player who is good at playing less, and in fact focus on other things. And there are players out there who are at Worlds right now who only do the scrims 4 or 5 games a day, and that's all they do. That's all they do. And they're performing at the top. And then there are those who are obviously doing the complete opposite. Know what works for you. Don't copy for the sake of copying. And that was the biggest issue of Western esports for a long time, which is copycat.
Do you
we're going to copy,
that,
and we're not going to copy it as well.
Do you think it's still a problem, for a lot of teams?
I think it's a lot better. I think we're reaching the point now where I'd say it's not a problem. Okay. Now there are still exceptions, there are still things, but I think we've gone past the 50% mark, let's say, so we're leaning more on it's more. That's what I've seen, and it's happened in the last sort of 3 years.
What do you think are the biggest things esports needs to work on then? Because obviously that was one of the huge things, is burnout and all this stuff, and I would still say that there's some problems there. But if you had to pick the top 3 things that you would like to see improved upon in esports, I would like to know where money is going or coming from, because that's a terrifying thing from the outside. You can enlighten me on that if you want.
It's a tough question. I mean, I would like to see the education of esports improve a lot. I would like to see esports reach the wider public, the wider communities, the wider everyone way more than it is. It's still a little bit like we are as a community cliquey. We don't allow the generic TV person to come watch us. We are like, oh, if you don't understand the game or if you don't play computers, stay away. Like, I want this to be a bit more mainstream. Like, I want this to compete on the levels of football or of whatever it may be. And that comes with education, because it's still, work with parents for them to understand what is working, because naturally our generations coming through are going to watch it. So it's making them aware. Financially, someone needs to figure it out. Every team is doing, is relying on investment right now, and there are teams that do well, and there are teams that, perhaps go for a more of a aggressive approach financially. No one's quite clicked or figured out how we can sort of monetize fans correctly, and especially online content, right? Everything's free online, and it should still remain that way. Like, that's the model, but there are ways you can monetize it that no one's quite figured out yet. Twitch and that are doing things that work, and other streaming platforms, things like that, but no one's quite figured out how to really make a fan, live and die by a team, and that, somehow contribute to the team in other ways as well. It's very old school right now. Get sponsors, do some streaming, do some adverts. So we need to figure that out. And just long-term stability, I think, is the biggest thing that I want to see improvement. A lot of people, as I said, are being very aggressive financially, serious expansion, trying to sort of land grab. And I think it's affecting franchise things, affecting players, because every Tom, Dick, and Harry wants to get involved right now. And it's in my opinion, it's causing issues. I think even some of the franchises that are being set up, not a League of Legends, fortunately, I think it's a brilliant one, but perhaps some others are more cash and grab focused.
I'll call it. I think CWL is fucking terrifying. So you don't have to say it. I'll say it. I think from the outside,
I didn't say a name.
He didn't say it. I'm just gonna say it. I mean, people have talked about it. From the outside in, it doesn't. I don't understand. Even like League of Legends, I am like, even though the money amount is significantly lower and there's a bigger audience, until like monetizing, until people stop paying at a loss, I'm going to be scared. And I don't know where people are right now. I don't know which teams are not right now taking a loss every year. I could probably look it up in Europe, because you guys have some pretty cool laws about being able to see a lot of that stuff. In the United States, we don't. That stuff is private.
I mean, I can tell you that in the West, so between Europe and America, there's only something like, I think, 3 teams making money. Right, like everyone else is losing money.
That's terrifying.
Anyone who thinks
you cut
wrong. Out. Sorry, anyone who thinks they're making money right is wrong.
Yeah.
But there are teams, and there are franchises, and there are leagues, are everything that are building it up, that are getting better year on year, that are improving. And I genuinely, League of Legends is one of them. Like, Riot as a partner are really, really good, because I can't go into the way the model works, of course, but
obviously,
they I don't know how to put it. Like they're growing not just viewership, but they're growing the brands, and they're growing the league, and they're doing content, and they're selling sponsorships. Can
I ask you a question? That, and I don't know if you can't answer it, that's fine. How many years, in your personal opinion, until you think most of the teams in NA will not be paying at a loss? Like a rough estimate. How many years do you think it's going to be?
I don't know if they ever. Oh, that's tough.
This is called deep dives into the minds of esports, not surface level dives into the minds of esports.
I'm going to change how I answer it.
That's fine.
And it's going to change how I answer it. I don't think a lot of those teams will exist in 6 to 7 years. My thought process, and maybe I'm wrong, my thought process is what you're going to see is in both Europe and America is you're going to see the biggest teams do well, the ones that are already making money or on the verge of, 3 or 4 of them from Europe, 3 or 4 of them from America, and that's all you're going to see. And then you're going to see the traditional sports teams have esports teams. That's what I think you're going to have. And I think everyone else who is sort of a big maybe, or someone you kind of know but don't really know, I think they're going to fall away. And you're kind of seeing it happen already with franchises, right? Anyone who didn't make one of these 3 franchises out there right now is struggling to keep their name going and to be relevant, and they're struggling. I think that level is going to continue with sports teams. And I mean, sports teams, whether they make money or don't make money, often depends on what the owner wants to do. Right?
Yeah.
Like some people treat this as a fun game financially, and some are there to make a profit. And there are plenty of sports teams out there making profits, and they know how to. And I think they will be a lot more successful once they understand the market. And 8-9 years down the line, they should hopefully understand the market. So that's what I think it's not quite the answer, but I guess it's like I'm saying a lot of teams.
It's good
actually.
I think that's a good answer. I'm content.
Be pushed out.
Yeah, I mean, you're already saying it. We saw Optic get bought out. Echo Fox is getting bought out. Nothing with LEC teams
Big
yet.
names.
Big names.
No.
Very...
LEC, so but like big. Well,
yeah.
I guess if you've
Splice Kite.
If you've seen the news, yeah.
I don't know the details behind that. If they're just rebranding, because I think they're owned by the same people. I think that I thought they were just getting rid of the brand, but exactly. I have to read.
But I guess it's true. But on sort of they're owned by someone else. Media owned, I guess it doesn't really count. But yeah, like Optic. To an extent, Immortals were, and I know they're back. But like someone like them, who were at the time were a massive brand, and they got pushed out. Echo Fox. There will be more, and these are not the nothing teams. These are big teams. So you will see, I think, equivalents. Come through.
Mm-hmm. So I have a couple more questions left for you. It's been fun. I've been having fun. I don't know if you have. If you haven't, I don't care. I'm sorry. You're just gonna have to deal with.
I'm having fun.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you about you personally, obviously you've grown a lot and you've done different jobs in esports. What do you think is your one of your biggest flaws that you need to work on to kind of improve yourself? You've already talked about working on your burnout, but what is one of the things out there you're like, yep, I know this is a flaw and this is what I've been working on?
Well, what I've been working on for the past couple of years is around sort of not necessarily being so black and white in my thinking.
That's good.
Again, like that engineering, logical mindset, project management, blah, 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 it all tends to lead in this is how it works, this is not how it works. Mm-hmm. It's a pipe, the pipe's working or the pipe's broken, right? There's no in the middle. And a lot of my work, especially, and this is where SteelG was the biggest help on this, even if I wasn't very good at it, was around that player development side, is understanding sort of more empathy towards people, improving on my networking skills, improving on my relationships with people, starting to understand, especially players who I work with every day, starting to be able to almost read them without them even having to say anything. And I could not do that when I started. And I like to think that I'm a lot better at that now. And that's something I still need to prove on, is sort of, not everything has to be black and white. There is allowed to be grey. And it's just how you create a plan through that grey part. And that's what I just need to keep working on. And it's against my current mindset. Like my mindset has never been like that. So I just need to bring in a different thought process.
Awesome. So I have one last question for you. It's the hardest or easiest, depending on who you are. And it's actually the only question I actually consistently say all the time. So you've had the experience being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time here today. And I'm sorry you're a little sick. That sucks. If you could,
off season.
I know, right? It's the best time to get sick, though. If you're going to get sick anytime,
true.
Probably better to be sick on off season. So having had the experience being on the show and the fun that it is, if you could see anyone being on the show, right, who would you pick? The only criteria is they have to speak English, because I'm uncultured and only speak English, and involved in esports in some way.
Is this someone I'm recommending, or like going to be anyone?
I mean, it can be anyone. If you want to reach out to it, be like, hey, I had a lot of fun on this show. I mean, you should consider it.
I would love if you've got one of sort of the OG players turned owners on. So Hector, Nadeshot, Xpeke, because I would love to understand their story of, especially Nadeshot's story of like working at McDonald's. And I remember, what was it? Didn't he like tweet or something like, if this tweet gets so many likes, I'm just going to quit and do COD full time? Or I can't remember what it was, but something nuts, right? In a year where, in a position where making money equals hard. I would love to understand sort of their sacrifice they made, especially Hector, like not even just being a player or whatever, but to try and build a company within this and to commit as much as they committed to it. Like Hector, Nadeshot, Xpeke would be amazing. Probably Nadeshot would be my interesting one. Whether you can get him on the show is a different question, but I love to know like development from player to owner.
What I will say is, even if I can't get them, I will definitely find a way to ask them, because I am nice. I am stubborn as a mule with that. It doesn't matter who you are. If I can find a way to ask you, I probably will. So So, but that's all the questions I had. I really appreciate you taking the time being on the show. I had a lot of fun. If you want any shout outs, this is your time to have them. I don't normally give them, but you want them, you got them.
I mean, I just shout out Excel Esports. Honestly, I'm saying watch Excel.
Oh, you cut out again.
Good. I'm saying watch Excel Esports and watch that space in LEC next year. We're gonna be pushing up.
Okay, I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens. Thank you so much for being on the show, Grant. Had a lot of fun.
Thank you.
For everyone out there, this has been Deep Dives in the Minds of Esports. My name is Blake Panashevitz, and until next time, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And we're all done.